So here we go is segment two here with Barbara Mango. Uh, and Barbara, we were just talking off camera here, off audio, and you were talking about maybe explaining to some people who don't know about doula a little background information.
Yeah, I didn't know what one was actually until my friend had mentioned it, and it's becoming a really important piece of a hospice team. Even though doulas aren't always employed by hospice, most of the time they're self-employed, but they have a unique like role in hospice. So an end-of-life doula, sometimes they're called death doulas. Some people may know them as that, or like even a death midwife. But I don't use that one. It's confusing. But an end-of-life doula, we're non-medical professionals, and we're trained to care for a terminally ill person's physical, emotional, and spiritual needs during the death process. So we're like a holistic spiritual component. We educate, we provide resources, we can help with end of life planning. We facilitate family meetings and try to help, with any family concerns that may come up. And the important thing to me is like we fill in the gap of medical care. So that's why I'm doing the curriculum. That's what I'm trying to, that's where my focus is. There's a lot of different kinds of doulas. I mean, there's, uh, believe it or not, teledoula, because of COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can even like do vigils at end of life on via Zoom and all that. Some doulas just work as grief doulas. Other doulas work as companion doulas. So there's so many different things you can do, but I want to be that like gap of care educator. So I'll be like an educator trainer doula.
Okay, sounds great. Do you have to have a certain background to do that kind of work?
No, a lot of people that are drawn to this field are nurses. I would say a lot of the students were nurses.
Mm-hmm.
A few of them actually worked in hospice, but like me, no, I worked in education way back early in my life. I worked in corporate travel, but I do have a PhD in metaphysics, so I have that whole, education, and I'm a lifelong experiencer. So to me, this was just like a natural extension, right? I mean, the whole book is about consciousness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Life after death, consciousness continues after death. And one of the things my dad kept saying, which was really blew my mind because he was like an atheist and he never talked like this, never. He would say to me, he actually said this a few times, like he'd say, what's so weird, Barbara? He said, like, he actually said this, I wrote it down. I'm hovering between two worlds. Like, I'll be here in my bed and then I'll go over to the other side and then I'll come back here in my bed again. And I looked at him, I'm like, oh, wow. He was
Yeah.
using like terminology that I use. And he had never heard me say anything like that. So he was having, like, I think probably as you get closer and closer to the end and that like veil, you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
the separation that we talk about we do talk about that in our book. It thins and it's almost like kind of non-existent at the end. And he would just say, like, I can go back and forth between the two. And I would be like, wow, what's it
Wow.
like? And he was like, it's amazing. So yeah.
And prior to that, during his lifetime, he said he didn't really use that kind of language, and
Oh, are you kidding me? He was like, he
and he
wouldn't
really
know.
wasn't. If I recall right, he really wasn't really a religious person, was he? Or did
Oh my God, he was like the world's biggest atheist. He,
really?
oh my gosh, he used to, like my mom, it was like so crazy. Okay, so like I grew up in a really liberal Jewish family, right? But even though like we were told we were Jewish, and my parents kind of like made us go to, Jews go to Saturday school. Like they don't go to Sunday school. It's actually on Saturday. So we were forced to go to like Sunday/Saturday school and all that. But my parents just like joined a synagogue, like to meet people, right? Like-minded people. But my father, so he became president of the temple, right? And was really involved in it, but it was kind of like, I mean, I can't say hypocritical, what's the word? Kind of funny because he was a total atheist. I mean, he would just say, oh, well, when you die, and I would say, he would say, you just go to sleep. I said, oh, you mean like when you have a dream and you go to sleep? He goes, no, it's not like a dream because you don't even dream. It's just black. You're under the dirt. It's just eternal black nothingness. And so when I was a little kid, I'd like freak out and probably have panic attacks because that's not a very pretty visual. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
anyway, so he didn't believe in anything, like nothing.
Right.
And then, and until he got closer to death, and then he started having these dreams and visions, and I believed him. And when he would talk about them, he was 1000% lucid, as are people when they do talk about these, and they made a lot of sense to me. And um, it was just amazing. They fought, and the things he talked about now that I'm learning about them, they're just exactly what I'm learning. And because he had these, and he was experiencing them, and they brought him such joy, such peace, such comfort, that they started making sense to him, and he started believing them. And he's like, you know what? You're right. There is more. There is more. I do believe that there's, that there is something after life, and there's a lot more than we can see. I just
You know,
couldn't believe it.
there's a common thing that happens, or at least I've my wife and I have noticed it. You'll be at a funeral, and someone says, "Gee, I wish they had accepted God or Jesus before they had passed." Assuming already that they're on the downward slope in the after.
Right.
It's,
Right.
the stories you hear of where people prior to passing have these profound religious experiences. It's not over yet. They might. I remember one story where they thought his father was like always cussing God, and was an atheist and in his behavior, and he went through this. They actually thought he had died, and then he came back, and he was talking about Jesus, and how he had just had this profound experience, and it was like it was years on the other side, but it was only a few hours in our reality. And he saw all the bad and the good things that he did, and he come to terms with it. And he sat up, and according to the person that told me the story, um, he told his the son and mom he was hungry and let's watch a movie. And so watched a movie. They had some family time. They ordered out some food there, and home delivered, I think. And then he said, "Well, I'm getting sleepy now." And then he did go back to bed and passed on afterwards, and which reassured the family that hey, he was good to go now.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times people do have, they call them rallies before they die, right? Which that would be, and they want to share something with the family, or they have to tell them something, or they're not done, right? So
Mhm.
that's amazing.
Yeah. Now your experiences throughout your life, you've seen a UFO, you've seen apparitions, you've seen had experience with orbs. I know.
Hmm.
For the sake of the readers, can you give us the rundown of all the different kind of things
Oh my
you've
gosh. Well, I'd be here for like 15 hours. So I don't know. I'm going to try to make this as brief as possible. Okay. So the, this is a cram course. The first one started when I was 2 years old, and a spirit, a Native American woman would come to me when I was alone playing in my room. And she was very tall and very beautiful and very striking. I don't know. I mean, I was little, I was small, so everybody seemed big to me. But I think, like, if I remember now, she probably was between 6 and 7 feet tall. So, and I always believed she was from another realm. And she would just sit with me, and we would have telepathic conversations. I don't remember what they were. All I remember is I looked forward to seeing her. She would share a lot of information with me that there's no way a 2-year-old uh, would even be able to grasp that, but I did. I mean, I believe she told me like why we were here, the meaning of life, that type of thing. So that was my first experience. And then when I was in first grade, I had a series of dreams, but I knew they weren't dreams. They were recollections of a past life in England at the turn of the century. And at the time, in real life, I was suffering from pneumonia, and I had been sick for like 50 days. I'd missed so much school. And the doctors, oh my gosh, they had tried literally every medication. Nothing was working. I couldn't get better. And they were going to have to hold me back because I missed so much school. And then one night I had, I mean, it was, first of all, I was 5 years old. So in this recollection of this woman's life at the turn of the century in England, I knew it wasn't a dream because I was able to see in 6 dimensions. I was everything I looked at was more colorful, uh, more intense. I could feel everything. I could feel like the wind, the breeze, but I could also feel her emotions. And basically, this woman had drank a lot, but she also was a chain smoker and she died of lung cancer. And I actually experienced that during this dream, which was very traumatic for a 6-year-old. But after I had this quote dream and knew she had died of lung cancer and understood the reason she died of lung cancer, when I woke up the next morning, my lungs were clear. And I remember saying to my mom, Mom, I feel really good. I wasn't coughing anymore. I had like no trouble breathing. And my mom's like, yeah, okay, whatever. So you can't go to school and until I take you to the doctor and he checks you out. And he did. And he said, our last name was Pollock. He said, Mrs. Pollock, your daughter's chest is completely clear. She has no fever. There's nothing. He took an x-ray, whatever. He said, she's fine. He said, I can't explain this. There's no way like, a kid could be sick for 50 days. And I just saw her like 2 days ago and she was really sick and now she's just like perfectly fine. He said, I don't have a medical explanation. And I remember sitting there just sort of smiling, going, I know why. You know what I mean? It's like once I had that memory, it's like I didn't need to hold on to that or whatever reason it had
Yeah.
embedded itself in me physically, right? So that was a spontaneous healing, which was like huge. And then so that was when I was 5 or 6. And then let's fast forward to when I was 13. My fraternal grandmother died on my birthday. I was living in Kansas at the time. She died in New York. I was desperately wanting to go to her funeral in New York. I was 13. I was certainly old enough. My parents wouldn't let me. So I had to stay home with friends. I was very upset. I was very angry. And I also felt like I didn't have closure. And I felt really guilty. I couldn't be there to say goodbye. So about 6 months later, so she died in January. In like June or July, I had just gone to bed. I was 14 now. It was a hot day outside all day. It was really, really hot. We had central air. But my mom's idea of like cooling a house with central air was like 80 degrees, right? So I was so hot and sweaty all the time in the house. So I was in bed and I just closed my eyes. I mean, it always took me a long time to go to sleep, but I just closed my eyes. And then all of a sudden, the temperature in the room dropped precipitously. I was like, like, because we had all read like our paranormal stories, right? With like
Mhm.
when apparitions come and they need to draw from energy in the room or whatever, and the temperature drops. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And I just squished my eyes closed because it was really cold around my bed, really, really cold. And then I remember I just had a sheet on and I was like so scared. I like pulled the sheet up around me. And this sounds very paranormal-ish, okay, it does. And then I felt a tug on the sheet. It was hard. Something was trying to tug the sheet out of my hands. And I'm like, oh no, oh no, oh no. I was like, oh no, I was like so terrified. And I kept like holding on to the sheet, holding on to the sheet, holding on to the sheet. And it actually got tugged out of one of my hands. I didn't want to look. I did not want to look. But then all of a sudden, the atmosphere in the room, and my eyes were scrunched closed, but it was a dramatic shift. It was almost like the energy just like became very light and very airy. And I know this sounds weird, but very joyous. Do you know what I mean? Like the whole energy changed.
Oh.
And I started like just getting permeated with this happiness, even though I was scared and then my eyes were still closed. And then I heard my grandmother's voice. And you know, when people die, the one thing they always say is keep a recording of their voice. Like, you know, on your phone, don't erase like one of their messages because you always tend to forget, you know, what their voice sounds like. But as
Mhm.
clear could be, my grandmother's voice, she says, Barbara, I know you've been feeling really guilty and sad that you couldn't come to my funeral, but I know why you couldn't come. And I'm so happy over here. And I know your parents won't let you. And that was beyond, you know, your control, but it's so beautiful here. I don't ever want you to feel bad again. And then all of a sudden, boom, gone. The room got hot and sweaty again. My sheet just stopped. And like, it was almost like immediate. Like I felt so at peace. And the
Mhm.
thing that was so like, it was with my dad, like what we talked about earlier with my dad, the love, the energy that filled that room the love was so intense, so powerful, beyond what we can experience in human form. I said to myself, I know my grandmother was here because I've never experienced love like that, you know, here on this
Mhm.
planet. It's way beyond like the love of like a family or the love of, you know, I had any kids, but I was like, wow. And then it just went on from there. I mean, as I got older, I had like a verified UFO sighting with telepathic communication with the occupants, and I've seen um, orbs, and I've so many things, Brent. I mean, it pretty
Right.
much it runs the gamut. It runs the gamut. And then this summer, I was, you know, we have an above ground pool, and I was just bobbing around in it on like a float, and all of a sudden I took a video of it because I'm like, okay, are you seeing things? Like, okay, are you imagining things? All of a sudden, because we're surrounded by forests, like our yard is, you know, we're kind of in the woods. But
Mhm.
I love trees. So there's this one tree in my yard that I don't know, I'm really drawn to. I think they have a beautiful energy. They're very peaceful. And I was looking at this one tree, and then all of a sudden, all these, it's hard to explain. Like I've heard people refer to fairy lights, you know, and,
Mhm.
but I've never seen them. And I'm not quite sure what they are. But it just like I was looking at the tree, and then all of a sudden, all these like little twinkly, sparkly lights started coming out of it, and it was beautiful. And I was like, oh my God, you know, you better go put on your glasses because, like, I don't know, maybe what's wrong with you? So I just kind of said to please, please stay there, don't go away. And I ran to the deck. I got out of the pool. I ran over to the deck where my glasses were, got my glasses on, and I videoed it, taped it. I videoed, you know, on my phone, and
Mhm.
it did that for about 5 or 10 minutes. And I took a
Wow.
video of it, and I looked at it, and I sent it to a friend who's like kind of, you know, knows about this. And she said, Barbara, no, you didn't imagine that. It's not like the sun, like reflecting off your pool. It's a very specific area. Um, yeah, so that was this past summer, and that was amazing.
Sounds like it. Wow.
Hmm.
So yeah, the whole gamut. And yeah. Well, anyway, that gives us a good overview. If they want to know more, they have to read the book, right?
I know. I'm just like a walking. I know it's just crazy. It's crazy, but I love it. You know, I think it's so fascinating when we have these experiences. They really enrich our lives, and they really do.
Mhm.
Well, I call prove. I mean, you know, scientifically, maybe not, but I absolutely believe they're real. Um, and they've shown me, you know, I don't fear death, and I just think it's just another, you know, another step, another piece that we go on to. So they've only made my life better, even though some of them have been a bit scary and frightening.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
and just because you have one of these alternative experiences doesn't mean you need to be locked up from society. Uh,
oh
you
God,
know,
no.
all
No,
these
no.
people who have been studied, the time and time again, the psychological profile has been they're normal, they're and you can be a credible person and have an incredible experience.
Oh, I love that. I love how you said that. That's like, that's really good way of explaining it. Yeah, because they need to be normalized. Like people pathologize them, right? And they try to make you, feel like you're nuts or something. But I think they're just a very normal part of the human experience. But most people just, they don't want to go there. They can't accept it, or, they don't want to be quiet and still, or are they just, it's beyond their way of understanding life. But I love what you said. That was awesome, Brent.
Well, actually, I borrowed that from Al Chop, I think his name was, back from the 1950s. He was studying UFOs, and he was concluding at the time that incredible people were seeing incredible things, and that applies to whether it's UFOs or a near death experience, or an apparitional phenomenon of some kind. Yeah. So anyway, I won't take I'll just take the fact I used it, not that I actually invented that.
Well, I like it. You should use that, because I think that's an excellent way of explaining it. Absolutely. Because yeah, I mean, I think I'm normal. I mean, other people may not, but yeah, I mean, these are normal experiences and they need to be normalized. I think that's part of what our book is about. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to say, yeah, we've had these. We're not crazy. Science supports this. And, let's look at this differently. And,
Yeah,
you know,
there's a lot of good research in that book, and
yeah.
I'm sure that over time there will be another book. Um,
Yeah. A lot of work, Brent. You know that, right?
yep, yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
Well, Barbara, I think this just about concludes. um, Unless there's something you want to add that we haven't touched upon, or
I don't think so, but the name of the book, if any of your listeners or readers
Mhm.
haven't heard of it before, it's called Convergence, the Interconnection of Extraordinary Experiences. It's available on Amazon,
Here's a
Barnes
copy
and
of
Noble.
it.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, thank you again, Barbara, for you know talking with me and doing one of these interviews. This time YouTube. Usually we've done audio in the past only, but anyway, I'm getting into YouTube now.
I think
Um,
that's great, Brent. I
anyway,
love it.
so anyway, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and experiences, and telling some more about the book and what you're up to now. And we will stay connected, and on to the next.
Okay, thanks for having me, Brent.
Oh, thank you for letting me have you for a while here.
Okay, Brent, take care.
All right, you too, Barbara. We'll
Okay,
see you.
bye bye.